Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. Today I'm going to make a soup, but I'm also going to make bread to go with the soup. It is 10 o'clock in the morning. Julie gets home from work around 6, so I've got that much time to make bread and a soup. So I thought I'd start off with the bread. I'm going to have to stop talking because I need to count. I need 7 half-cup scoops of flour, and I'm not overly ridiculous about making sure that they're exact. 3, 4, and 5. So 5 all-purpose, and this is whole wheat. I'm going to put 2 whole wheat in. Right, so I'm scooping, they're heaped, they're compacted. It's absolutely everything bread experts tell you not to do, because that's how I roll. So I've got 7 half cups of flour in here, depending on the brand of flour that you use. And I am flour brand agnostic. Today, both of these are Robin Hood, because Robin Hood was on sale. If the no-name brand from Loblaws is on sale, I buy that. If the house brand from Sobeys or Metro is on sale, I buy that. I will buy 5 Roses if it's just what's on sale. And every time you switch to another brand, the water becomes the important part of this. And the art of baking bread is the important part. Far outweighs measurements, because all flour is milled slightly differently. Each brand is milled slightly differently. Each brand will have a different mix of wheats that they're using. The brand of flour will change the water content, and that's where you just sort of have to play it by ear. So in here, I'm going to add, this is instant yeast and salt. This is essentially a no-knead bread. What I'm making is a no-knead bread. But this ratio of flour, salt, yeast, and water, which I will put down below, is the basic building block of what I do for pizza dough. So if I'm making pizza dough, I use pizza flour, but the exact same amounts of everything else. And I need it. I use a machine, and I need it. If this was after supper on a Tuesday night, I would do this, put a lid on it, and leave it on the counter until tomorrow morning, and I wouldn't touch it. Wouldn't touch it. So I had 400 mils of water. That roughly, 7 half scoops of flour, roughly comes out to 500 grams. 500 to 550, depending on if you're putting in whole wheat, depending on your brands. So I put in about 300 mils of water to start. I've got a fork, and we're just going to stir it. This is a dough that will come out slightly on the sticky side. So in goes the rest of our water. Okay, so I'm going to switch to my hand. This does make a slack dough, a wet dough, a sticky dough. And at this point, it's going to seem really raggedy and a little bit dry around the edges, and you're going to have a little bit of flour in the bottom. One of the problems it's not really a problem, but one of the things that people do when they first start making bread is they add too much flour. They're afraid of a sticky dough. Sticky dough is going to give you, every time, a better loaf of bread. And so it's, to me, I always err on the side of sticky, and this one is going to be sticky. So that's it. Ragged into the bowl. 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to knead it, but I am going to fold it. So what I'll do is I'll put the lid on this, and I'll leave it on the counter a couple hours from now, and not on a timer. I'll stand up from my desk and say, oh, it's been a couple hours. Might have been an hour, might have been an hour and a half. And I'll come out and I'll just fold it, and we'll show you how to do that. What I want to get across doing this is that all of that information that you're getting online, from blogs, from YouTubers, from television hosts, about making the perfect loaf of bread and all of the science that you have to do to make the perfect loaf of bread, if that's what's keeping you from making a loaf of bread, throw all of that away. Go out into your kitchen and just do this and do it a couple of times. And you're going to get to a point where you're going to make an amazing loaf of bread. And you're going to say, why do I need all those rules? Well, you need all those rules if you want to do it every day in a bakery situation and you want to make these perfect loaves of bread that you see on Instagram. But if you're trying to feed your family and you realize that that bag of flour, which will make you dozens of loaves of bread, 10 kilos of flour is 66 cups, and I used 7 half cups. So it's going to make you lots of loaves of bread for the same price as a loaf of bread that you're buying at the grocery store. This is a money saver, and it really doesn't take up much time. So I'll see you in a couple hours. Okay, 2 hours have gone by, and this is what it looks like. And so we've got a bit of rise. That's good. The more important part here is that over that first 2 hours, the flour has fully hydrated. It has absorbed all of that water. And what happens, and we've started to form gluten, really is what happens. So there's 2 proteins in the flour. The 2 proteins come together. When those 2 proteins come together, it's gluten. We want to promote long chains of gluten, which is often why you're kneading it. Or in the case of a high hydration dough, sometimes why you leave it overnight, and it's called no-knead because the high hydration makes those long chains form on their own. I'm going to help it along with some folding. Whole other discussion on the folding. But every time you fold it, or every time we fold it over the course of the day, and I'll probably do it 3 or 4 times, every time you come back, the dough will be smoother. It will be more elastic. It will be a nicer dough. So let's do the first fold. So many methods, and everyone's got a different method, and they're going to tell you something different. I just sort of take it, pull it out, fold it over. It is what it is. It's a fold. And do the same thing. And the first time we do this, the fold isn't going to be all that great. You're not going to get much elasticity. You're not going to be able to pull too far. And that's all I do the first time. Now that I've folded it in on itself here, I'm going to flip it over. Lid on, 2 more hours. Okay, so I've done 3 folds on this bread dough. I'm going to make the soup, and then we'll come back, we'll shape this, and we'll put it into the basket. So I wasn't going to show you this soup, because how many soups that are almost kind of the same can I show you? But then I made it last week at home, inside the house, just for myself and Julie, and we plowed through a pot of soup really quickly, because the flavor was amazing. And most of the flavor is because of this. So I'm just going to scrape a little bit of fat off the top here. Every January, Julie and I make sausage. We buy a mess of pork and we make sausage. And so we make the family sausage recipe and we wrap it up, put it in vacuum bags, and freeze it. So that's 2 meals for Julie and I. We did 20 kilos of, we did 20 kilos of sausage, which left me with bone, cartilage, and skin from the pork. And I was gonna film making the stock and the whole deal, and then I didn't, because I had just done the ham bone. So just after whatever video, 5 or 6 videos ago, where I did the ham bone and then the ham soup, I did exactly the same with the pork. And so that is pork bone, cartilage. I'm not a great butcher, so there's a little bit of meat left on the bone, probably, maybe 100 grams of meat, so not a whole lot, but enough to give flavor. And I put that in a pot with a couple of onions, a couple of ribs of celery, a couple of carrots, and I dice those super fine, super fine. I'm just taking the fat off the top. I saved the fat. I will clean the fat because it's still got some of the jelly on it here. I will clean the fat and keep that for future use, because I'm always using fat in the kitchen. Anyway, I put all of that in a pot, cover it with water, and bring it up, not even to a boil. And look at that jelly. Look at that jelly. Like, it's absolute jelly, and it's clear. It's got a really clean taste. It is fantastic. I now wish that I had shown it to you. So into this pot, I've got a little bit of the fat. It's coming up to temperature. We're going to sweat down some onions chopped up. This is a hot banana pepper. In that goes a green pepper. And this is some cumin that I had just crushed up in a mortar and pestle. Anyway, so we make the sausage. I make the stock. We get a really good deal on the pork. We get a really good deal on some amazing sausages. That's enough sausage to last us pretty much the entire year. Put that away. And then I get a big jug of pork stock, which I will freeze the rest of this and use it over the year to make more soups. And I've got enough pork fat there now to last me an entire year of cooking. I guess what I'm going to say is if you can sort your life into that type of thing and you buy a big bag of flour to make bread, you can eat really well. You can eat really healthy, and you can eat at a really good price. You can stretch your budget if you're willing to do a lot of little things. And I get it. Sometimes you just don't have the time. There are times where I don't have the time. A little bit of effort and a little bit of planning, and you can really stretch your food budget. Okay, that's going pretty good. The cumin smells amazing. I'm going to hit that with a little bit of black pepper and a little bit of salt. The pork stock is very lightly salted. I put in just enough, but I don't oversalt it because I don't know what I'm going to use it for. And at the same time, I also don't brown the bones. When I'm making beef, chicken, or pork stock for soups, I don't brown the bones. If I'm making those for a gravy or to put into a gravy, I will brown the bones in those instances. You've got to kind of know what you're using it for. One size does not fit all in the kitchen. There's so many variables. Okay, looks good. Next in are beans. I'm using 3 different kinds of beans. I've got navy beans, I've got black-eyed peas, and I've got black beans. I like different beans because they bring different flavors and different textures. If you are someone who only uses dried beans, good for you. Dried beans it is. Dried beans certainly are great to stretch your budget because they're a whole lot cheaper. They just take a little bit longer. Sometimes when I'm doing all of these things, I don't have time to soak beans and cook them ahead of time. Canned beans work really well. We have a lot of dried beans in our cupboard. We're always prepared for that sort of thing. And so dried beans and rice, lots of it. Keeps forever and it's relatively inexpensive. One got away. Next in, Rotel, because, you know, Rotel. And chopped green chilies. An amazing source of flavor, these green chilies. There's only one brand available where we live, so I'm sort of restricted in what I can use. It already smells amazing. Anyway, next ingredient is green salsa. This is tomatilla salsa. Now, I will use the tomatilla salsa today, February. I looked at the price of fresh tomatillas all the way from Mexico, and I looked at the price of the salsa, and I went with the salsa because it was more cost effective. So I'm going to put about a half a jar in, about a half a jar. Again, it really brings a lot of flavor. So if you've got fresh tomatillas, use fresh tomatillas. If you can get them at a reasonable price in season, that would be amazing. Okay, here we go with our pork stock. Did I tell you how much that jiggles? Look at that. It's hard to tell when it's like this how much you're putting in. I'm shooting for 4 or 5 cups of stock, but when it's this jello, it can be a little bit difficult. I'm going to say that's probably enough. With the heat, it'll just slowly melt into the soup. We'll give it a stir. What's left in here, I will put in containers and stick in the freezer. It changes texture a little bit when it comes out of the freezer, but once you stir it into a soup, it works exactly the same. It brings all of the same things. Because it's got such high collagen levels and it's so jello-like, it coats the inside of your mouth and it carries flavor longer. So a soup that you would eat using supermarket stock or broth, where the flavor washes over your mouth and it's gone quickly, this kind of holds it there and it makes every flavor just that much bolder, and it sticks and your lips get sticky because it's just like, you've got to make that to really understand what's happening. Now, I think this is pretty good. I do, just this way. The last thing I'm going to add is a spice mix called Clubhouse Tex-Mex. And it's just sort of a ramped up chili spice. Just brings just a little bit more. I find the cumin kind of gets you most of the way there, and this just adds that extra 5% to push you over the top. So put that in. All right, we'll give this a bit of a stir. It's kind of hard with the jello in there. Put the lid on medium-low heat, and we'll just let that go. Okay, so hour and a half, 2 hours, low simmer. The flavors will all come together. It'll be great. We're going to move on to the bread. I'm going to shape the bread, and I'm going to do its last rise in one of these baskets. You don't have to have one of these baskets. You could shape it and put it back into this bowl, and then just tip it out of this bowl into whatever you're going to cook it in, whether it's a Dutch oven. You could cook it on just a regular old sheet tray. Sheet tray like this works fantastic. I find that if I put this sheet tray on top of my pizza stone, you get a really good crust. Easy peasy, no special equipment. I've got a Challenger cast iron bread thing going in the oven, which is just kind of a fancy Dutch oven. You don't need any of those things. You don't need any of those things. Do your final shape, put it back in this bowl, dump it into the pot or onto the sheet tray, and you're fine. So we're going to put this out. No flour on the board. It is sticky. Look how sticky that is. So I'm going to do one last fold. There you go. And okay, so I am no expert at shaping, but I've got a fairly nice round. It's fairly smooth on the top. Your next question is, if you're going to use one of these bread baskets or even put it back into the bowl that you did your mix in, are you going to flip it over so that it's smooth side down, which means that the seam, when you flip it over again to put it into the pot or on the tray, you've got to decide whether you want the seam up or down. Some people like the seam down so that the seam is up when you flip it over to bake it, and then it breaks open along the seam to let the steam out, and it looks very rustic. It looks very nice. Other people like to have the seam facing up at this point so that it is at the bottom later and cut a slash. That's my preference. So my basket is already floured. I'm going to pick this up, put it into the basket. There you go. And we'll cover it and just let it rise. So this is a voiceover because I forgot to hit start on the voice recorder. We got a good rise, but my shaping isn't fantastic, so it's split apart a little bit here. That's okay. It'll be fine. Oven preheated to 450. The Challenger bread baking cast iron thingamajig is in the oven and hot. If you're going to use a Dutch oven, you should heat that as well. But if you're using a baking tray, you don't have to heat it. Just plop it on and stick it in the oven. It'd be great if you put the baking tray on a pizza stone. Okay, so here we go. Open up the oven, pull out the shelf, take the lid off the Challenger, and we plop the bread in. I'm going to grab a serrated knife and slice the top so that we can let the steam out. Lid back on and close the door. 12 to 15 minutes. Take the lid off. And another 15 to 20 minutes. And I cook it to somewhere between 190 and 200 degrees Fahrenheit internal temperature. Timing works great. Thumping it on the bottom works great. This really gives you an accurate, and I shoot for 190 to 200. Lots of information online about what that temperature should be, and not everybody agrees. Okay. Get some soup.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Jules.
Hey, friends. Got some spoons. If we're having soup, that's an obvious one.
Soup for Julie, some soup for me.
There we go. Oh, I still got 2 small spoons. There. Picking up spoons is hard, apparently.
Some bread.
Ooh, I don't know what to do first. I might dunk my bread first. Is that
Oh, that works. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, I know what this soup tastes like. It tastes amazing.
Is this when I admit I had some for lunch? Of the previous batch?
Yeah.
It's so good.
The bread
Is lovely as well. Mm-hmm. But you already know the recipe, but I have to say the addition of the
green
salsa verde?
Yeah.
Just
Okay, so I indicated earlier that formula for the bread, the flour, water, salt, yeast percentage, is exactly the same as I use for pizza. So for pizza, I will knead it in the machine, put it in a jug, stick it in the fridge for 2 or 3 days, and let it ferment, and then make pizza. And it has an incredible texture for pizza. On low effort days, Julie will mix everything together before we go to bed. Mm-hmm. And the next morning I'll shape it and bake it. Don't touch it at all. And then today you saw me do the folds, which gives a slightly different texture than the total lazy version. Mm-hmm. But the total lazy version is still incredible. And then on days when I feel like it, I will knead it, shape it, and bake it. And it gives a slightly different texture yet again. And you saw me scoop in some white flour and some whole wheat flour. Sometimes I use all white flour. Sometimes I use more scoops of whole wheat. I change that ratio up depending on what I'm looking for. It's very forgiving. I think what I'm trying to tell you is it's very forgiving. And if you're someone who is afraid to bake bread because there's so many rules, don't be. Just try it. It might take you a couple of times until you get it exactly the way you want it, but that's about learning how the dough feels in your hand.
probably the worst thing that happens is you get the version that's too wet. Mm-hmm. That just kind of turns out to be a bit of a flat thing. I'd make the one that's too dry, and it kind of is a little bit dense. Mm-hmm. And then you figure out the in-between. They're both edible. They're just,
So if that's one thing you get from this video, that's great. If you get 2 things from this video, it's make use of everything you bring into your kitchen. Mm-hmm. That is a great way to stretch your kitchen budget, is think about what you can do with, in our case, the pork. We made the sausage, and then made the soup stock, and then the soup, and then, you know. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.
still think the cactus would go really well in here. What is that called?
Nepali.
Nepali, yes.
If in the depths of February I could get Nepali, it would be really good in this, wouldn't it?
Yeah, every time I look at the green pepper, I think, oh, is that Nepali?
Oh,
That'd go really well in here.
that would be really, yeah.
Random back-end thoughts of Julie. Thanks, Glenn.
Second shot.